Hey guys, I'm back again. In the last episode, we rebuilt the carb on this weed whacker, but it wouldn't start. It's acting like it's not getting any spark, but I tested for spark, and it's got spark, so I think it might be a weak spark. I tried replacing the spark plug, that didn't work. The plug is wet, so it's definitely getting fuel, so I think we have an ignition coil issue. I'm hoping I can get away with just cleaning the coil to fix it. So the way these are designed, you pretty much have to remove the engine from the housing to get to anything. I'm going to start with the back cover. These are Torx bolts T25. Now on this engine, the back plastic cover actually seals the crankcase. You'll see when I remove it the small O-ring which they use to seal it. I don't really like this design. On a 2-cycle engine, if you have air leaking through the crankcase, it can cause issues and damage the engine over time. So we'll need to be careful not to damage that O-ring. Now the back cover can just pull off. You'll see here the exposed insides of the crankcase and the O-ring seal on the plastic housing. On this engine, the gas tank came off with the housing, so I'll have to disconnect the fuel lines. Before we go any further, I want to pull the muffler. There's a screen inside there that can clog up. Since we're taking the whole thing apart anyway, we might as well clean that. The muffler is held onto the engine with a spring. I had trouble getting my spring tool hooked onto it, so I ended up using a needle nose vice grip to lift the spring up high enough to where I could get the spring tool hooked on. Once I got the tool hooked on, I was able to pull up on it to disengage the spring. And of course, since this was evidently designed by some guy sitting in a mahogany-lined office with many leather-bound books and fancy degrees on the wall, they designed it so you can't take the muffler off without removing the whole engine. Whatever, we were going to do that anyway. So there's 4 more T25 bolts on the front, and once I remove these, we'll be able to just slide the engine right out. Well, after we disconnect the throttle linkage, then we'll be able to slide the engine out. I'm just going to remove the whole carb. There's only 2 bolts holding it on. And then the engine should just slide right out. After, we disconnect the wires to the kill switch. After that, the engine should actually slide all the way out. So finally, I can swing that muffler out of the way to access the screen. Here's a close-up shot of the screen. It doesn't look clogged up at all, but I'll remove it and clean it out anyway. Now some guys will leave this out completely. It's supposed to stop sparks from flying out the exhaust. Since I'm going to be selling this when I'm done, I'm going to put mine back in. To get that spring reinstalled, I clamped the muffler down with a quick clamp. Then I can use my spring tool to pull the spring back onto the muffler. So now we can see our ignition coil. There's 2 4mm bolts holding it down. These were pretty tight. I had to get the ratchet to bust them loose. How this works is there are 2 magnets on the flywheel, and when the flywheel spins, as those magnets pass underneath the coil, the magnetic field creates the electricity for the spark. There is also one of the kill switch wires held underneath one of the bolts. There's some pretty crusty rust on the coil laminations here. I think this is our problem. I think that rust is interfering with the magnetic field, causing it to have a weaker spark. Here you can see the magnets on the flywheel. So I went ahead and sanded the rust off the coil and off the flywheel magnets. Then I cleaned off the mounting spots where the coil mounts and the mounting spots on that spacer bracket. The coil needs to be able to ground itself to the engine block, and we don't want a bad connection there. Then I'm going to rotate the flywheel so those magnets are pointing away from the coil. Otherwise the coil will try and stick to the magnets. And then we'll put the cleaned coil back on. Don't forget that kill switch wire that goes under the top bolt. Now we don't want to tighten these bolts down just yet, because we have to set the air gap. We need a gap in between the coil and those magnets on the flywheel. There's varying specs for the air gap depending on the engine. Usually it's somewhere in between 8 and 12 thousandths of an inch. I'm going to go with 10 thousandths for mine. The proper tool for this is a feeler gauge. It has thin strips of metal in different thicknesses. You want a long one, as the short ones aren't going to be long enough. If you don't have a feeler gauge, the old-timey rule of thumb is to use a business card. I don't like doing that, since business cards are all different. They can be different thicknesses. Does it have raised Cillian rail lettering, embossing? Is that color off-white? Bone, maybe? Oh my, is that a watermark? So I'm just going to use a feeler gauge. Here I'm setting the feeler gauge in between the coil and the flywheel. Then I'll rotate the flywheel to position the magnets under the coil. I'll make sure the gauge is pinched in under the coil laminations. And now we can tighten it down. When you're done tightening, just rotate the flywheel and pull the feeler gauge out. Then I like to spin the flywheel a few times just to make sure that nothing got bound up. To check for spark, I set the engine back in the housing so I can use the pull starter to spin it over. It's not showing up on camera very well, but it is sparking better now. So now we can reassemble it. I'm going to hook those two kill switch wires back up and then put the 4 bolts in to hold the front housing on. Off camera, I did spray some lube onto the spring for the pull starter. It wasn't retracting all the way before, but now it's fine. On the back cover, I cleaned up the O-ring and left some oil on it. We need this to make a good seal on the crankcase. So I'm going to carefully set this in place and make sure everything is seated. Then I'll put the 4 back bolts back in. I'm tightening these in a crisscross pattern so that we evenly torque everything down. Remember, this back plastic part is technically part of the crankcase itself. So now we can reinstall our carb. I'm going to hook up the throttle linkage and the fuel lines first, and then our air filter base plate. And now we're ready to see if it will fire up. I'm going to hit the primer 6 times. We've got the choke fully on, and we'll see how many pulls it takes before it starts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's got a little bit of a vibration thing going on, but it seems to rev up fine. Let's take it off of choke. Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to have to adjust the carb at all. Here's a shot of the spinny part. I'll have to put some new line in it. Let's make sure the kill switch works. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Wow, that was a lot more work than I had anticipated. I was hoping that this would just be a simple carb rebuild. I did check it for spark before I started working on it. It goes to show that just because you have spark, it might not be enough spark to get the engine running. Thankfully, I was able to repair the old coil and didn't have to buy a new one. Yeah, there's a reason people just throw these away when they won't start. You have to take the whole thing apart to fix it. Most repair shops won't even touch them. It's just not worth it. I'll be lucky if I can get 50 bucks for this thing next spring. Oh well. Thanks everyone for watching. Be sure to check out my channel for more small engine videos. See you later. Bye.